The directions for this page say, find the slopes of the asymptotes of the following graphs of the hyperbolas. Okay, so look at number 1. Okay, this is a hyperbola. Okay, because remember guys, with hyperbolas, there are two lines that are called asymptotes. You have this one that's going up, so it's positive, and this one that's going down, so it's negative. We have to find the slope of those lines, which we already know how to do. Okay, this 9 is in the what place? A. So A was originally what number? 3. This 16 is in the B place, and B was 4. Okay, that just became 9 and 16 once they were plugged in the formula and squared, or the equation and squared. So we know when we write the slopes, you're going to have either 3 over 4 or 4 over 3. Well, with a graph, it makes it easy to figure it out. To go from the center of the hyperbola and then up to the line right here, you have to rise 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have to run 1, 2, 3. So that lets you know your slope is 4 over 3. But there's a reason we have to put plus or minus, because think about it. To get from here to this point on the line, didn't we go up 4 and right 3? And up and right are both positive. But if we're on this line and we're trying to get down to this point on it, don't you have to go down 4, then right 3? So that's where the negative 4 over 3 comes in, because you have two different asymptotes here. You're representing them both right here. So technically, the first asymptote line is positive 4 over 3. The second one that's going down is negative 4 over 3. But instead of writing it twice, just write it once and write plus or minus. Okay? Yes. Now let's look at number 2. What was the A value? 4. And what was the B value? 3. So you know your slope is going to have a 4 and a 3. You just have to decide which one goes on top, which one goes on bottom. Well, with a graph, it's easy. You just count from the center, and then look, to get to land on the line again, don't you have to rise 1, 2, 3, 4, and run 1, 2, 3? So again, our slope is 4 over 3. Now, look, it's pretty obvious why you ended up getting 4 over 3 for both of these. 9 is under the x over here. 9 is under the x over here. 16 is under the y. 16 is under the y. That's why you got the exact same slope, because they have the exact same numbers under the letters. Does that make sense? Okay, but what do we do when they ask us to find slopes and they don't give us a picture where we can count rise over run? Well, let's think about this. Don't we all know that slope is also known as rise over run? And then there's actually a special formula to calculate slope, and isn't it y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1? So basically all you have to know is that for slope, the y's go on top, the x's go on bottom. So for this one, what's in the A place? 13, because 13 squared would have made that 169. What's in the B place? 9, because 9 squared made that 81. Well look, y goes on top. Under the y was the A value of 13. X goes on bottom for slope, and under the x was the B value of 9. So your slope is plus or minus 13 over 9. It's just y over x, rise over run. So let's look at number 4. A value was? The B value? 6. The 10 came from under the y, so that's your rise, because y's go on top. The 6 came from up under the x, so it goes on bottom. And so technically that's right, but on the test, they'll probably go ahead and reduce it, since both of them reduced by 2 to 5 over 3. No, because they're both correct. This one's just more simplified. Okay, so now turn to the back. Yes, because slope is always rise over run, and we rise up and down like the y-axis, and we run left and right like the x-axis. So I want you to take a few minutes, just a few minutes, because these don't take that long, and try this page. And then I'm just going to quickly write the answers, and you can check yours, and if there's something you're confused about, you can ask. Otherwise, we're moving on. Okay, so just a few minutes, work on this page. Here we go. Number 1, you would have ended up with positive 2 over 4, but then that would reduce to 1 over 2. Number 2, you should have got plus or minus 1 over 2. Number 3, you should have got plus or minus 2 over 5. Number 4, plus or minus 5 over 2. Number 5, you should have got plus or minus 14 over 17, but then that would have reduced to plus or minus 2, or 2 over 1. My bad, 14 over 7. This is 14 over 7. 14 squared is 196. 14 over 7 is 2. 14 divided by 7? Okay, number 6. It would have been 10 over 14, but that will reduce to 5 over 7. Number 7. It would have been 5 over 5, and so that just reduces to 1, or 1 over 1 if you want to keep it a fraction. Number 8. Plus or minus 7 over 5. Number 9. Plus or minus 7 over 5. And number 10, plus or minus 6 over 13, because that one doesn't reduce. So, are there any questions? Nobody is confused about any of them. You just always have to remember the number that was below the y goes on top, the number that was below the x goes on bottom. For hyperbolas, A is always on the left, B is always on the right. Like with hyperbolas, hold on one second, let me pause. Okay. Here's where you really got to pay attention. Okay? You're going to have to be looking at that board a lot. And I'm going to try to get a formula sheet done today to go ahead and hand out tomorrow so that you'll have it at your desk instead of having to look up there. Because you're really going to have to look at each formula. Because now, this worksheet has an ellipse and hyperbola. So, the first thing you have to decide is, what is it? This is an ellipse. How do we know? Correct. If there's a plus sign in the middle, it is an ellipse. So now I want to focus my attention to the ellipse formulas. I noticed that in both of them, x minus h comes first, y minus k comes second. It's the a and the b that flip-flop. With a vertical one, the a is under the y. With horizontal, the a is under the x. And isn't a always greater than b with ellipses? So for this one, what number is in the a place? But technically, wasn't that the square root of 75? So we'll just leave it, since it's not going to be pretty, we'll just leave it the square root of 75. What was b? Square root of 7. Okay, so that's your a and b. Now they also want you to find the center. Okay? Yeah, the center is easy. Where's the center? 4, 1. Your center is always your h and your k. That's x minus h, y minus k. It's always the opposite of what it looks like because that minus was part of the equation. Now we need to find the foci. For an ellipse, the foci equation is c squared equals a squared minus b squared. Okay? So, a squared, wouldn't a squared just go back to 75? And b squared, wouldn't it just take you right back to 70? So c squared equals, and so to find c, what do you do to both sides? Square root. And so c equals 2.2. Okay, you do not have to do this every time, but I'm just going to do it for the first few to help you understand why this is happening, okay? I'm just going to do a quick sketch. Nothing fancy. I'm going to plot my center at 4, 1, so right 4, up 1 is my center. And then, what kind of ellipse was this? Was this vertical or horizontal? With an ellipse, isn't the bigger number up under the bigger number's under the y this time, right? So that makes it vertical. So basically, doesn't that mean my ellipse is going to look something like this, more or less? Okay, because it's vertical. So doesn't that mean to find the foci points, I'll be going up and down? Okay, so let's talk about that. To get to the foci points, you you have to go over 4 regardless, right? So both of them have an x value of 4. But then, didn't this start at 1 on the y-axis? And aren't we going to go up 2.2 units? And so that'll land us at 3.2. And then from 1, aren't we going to go down 2.2 units? And what's 1 minus 2.2? Negative 1.2. Okay, we're going to do a lot of these, so don't freak out. Well, because eventually you're not going to need the sketch. You'll just get it. Okay, I'm just doing them at first so you can understand. I'm just doing them at first so you'll understand how I know that we're going up and down, or how I know we're going left and right if that's the case. Okay, so can I erase all this? I'll take that as a yes. Okay, pay attention or you're going to be confused. Number 2, let's go ahead and do the easy part. Well, first let's identify what it is. Is it a hyperbola or an ellipse? It's definitely an ellipse because there's a plus sign in the middle. Is it vertical or horizontal? This time it's horizontal because isn't the bigger number under the x? Okay, this time your a, your bigger number, is up under the x, which makes it horizontal. Let's find the center. Where's the center? What's in the h place? Negative 1. Right, because remember, it would have been an x minus, so to get a plus meant it was an x minus negative 1. Okay, what's in the k place? Positive 10. So now we need to identify the a and the b. Remember, with ellipses, a is always greater than b. So a is, but really, 5, and b is 3. So now to do the foci for an ellipse is c squared equals a squared minus b squared. Wouldn't that just be 25 minus 9? And what is 25 minus 9? Okay, so then we square root it, and so c is 4. Okay, so you don't have to do the graph, but I'm just going to show you so that you can see visually what's going on. If I go left 1, down 10, my center would be way down here, correct? And since it's a horizontal ellipse, wouldn't it look something like that, more or less? So wouldn't that mean to find the foci points, you'd be going this way and that way? So, to get to the foci points, oh, thanks. Sorry, I didn't know what you were saying. Yeah, I should have gone left 1 up 10 instead of left 1 down 10. Okay, so let me fix that. Okay, so left 1 up 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so my center of my ellipse is right here, and I know that it's a horizontal ellipse because the bigger number was under the x. So it's going to look something like that, more or less. That means the foci will go left and right. Well, to get to either foci point, you're going to have to go up 10 on the y, right? So your y values are 10. That's not changing. What's changing is left and right, which is your x value. Aren't you going to go right 4 from negative 1? So what's negative 1 plus 4? 3. And then from negative 1, aren't you going to go left 4? And that'll take you over to negative 5. So those are your foci points. Okay, now let's look at number 3. For number 3, is this the equation of an ellipse or a hyperbola? This time it's a hyperbola, and we know that because there's a minus in the middle. Is this hyperbola vertical or horizontal? How do we know that? Right, with hyperbolas, if you look at those equations, you'll notice with a vertical one, it's y first. With a horizontal, it's x first. So that's how we know this one's horizontal, because x came first. So now let's find the center. Six, 10. Okay, to find the center, guys, you're just looking at the h and k. And they're always the opposite. Since it's minus 6, it's plus 6. Minus 10 means plus or positive 10. Now we need to find the foci. Remember with hyperbolas, A is always on the left, B is always on the right. So A would have been, and B would have been 12. But to find the foci of a hyperbola is C squared equals A squared plus B squared. So wouldn't that just be 25 plus 144? Which, yes, those total up to 169. And then when you square root both sides, what is the square root of 169? 13. Okay, so now, if you can't figure out what you're adding the 13 to, you need to do yourself a little sketch. So if my center is at 610, that'd be right 6, up 10. So like right up there. This is a horizontal hyperbola. So doesn't that mean it's going to open right and left? We don't really know where, but it opens right and left. So doesn't that mean your foci points are going to go this way and that way? So both of them are going to keep their y value of 10, right? They're not going anywhere vertically. They're staying up 10. But from this point that started at 6, you're going to add 13 and you're going to subtract 13. What's 6 plus 13? And what's 6 minus 13? Negative 7. Since it's horizontal, you'll be adding and subtracting to the x. Had it been vertical, you would have been adding and subtracting to the y. The same way. If it's, since this one was this one was a vertical ellipse, so we added and subtracted our c value from the y value. And over here, since this was a horizontal ellipse, we added and subtracted 4 from the negative 1. The 10 stayed. We just did negative 1 plus 4, which is 3, negative 1 minus 4, which is negative 5. Okay, so let's look at number 4. Is this a ellipse or hyperbola? Hyperbola, because it's a minus. So focusing on hyperbolas. Y comes first, which means it's what kind of hyperbola? Vertical. What's the center? Very good. Negative 3, negative 7. This is the trickiest time to find the center because remember, this is y minus k over here. So 7 is in the k place. And this is x minus h over here. So 3 is in the h place. But you always do the opposite sign, remember. Okay, so now, with hyperbolas, A is always on the left, B is always on the right. So what's your A value? What's your B value? Okay? And with hyperbolas, it's c squared equals a squared plus b squared, which would be 36 plus 25. And then what does that total up to? What? And then what do you do to solve for c? Yeah, with hyperbolas, you add those together. With ellipses, you subtract them. Because with ellipses, you want them to stay inside. So you subtract, so it'll be a smaller amount. With hyperbolas, you want them to go on the outside, so you add. Okay, so now c equals what? What is the square root of 61? 7.8. Okay, so now without a diagram, this is a vertical hyperbola. So won't the foci be going up and down? So for the foci points, you're not moving them left or right. They're going to stay at negative 3 on the x-axis. You're moving them up and down from the negative 7. So what's negative 7 plus 7.8? 0.8. And what's negative 7 minus 7.8? Negative 14.8. Okay, turn to the next page. Why don't you just try number 1 and number 2, and then we'll go over them. Just try them, and then I'll go over them. Okay, number 1, what are we dealing with? An ellipse. What type of an ellipse? Horizontal. Okay, we know it's an ellipse because there's a plus sign. We know it's horizontal because the bigger number's under x. Where's the center of this ellipse? Negative 5, 0, because you have a positive 5 in the h place, so that you know that's a negative 5, and you have nothing in the k place, so it's 0. Okay, now we need to know our A and our B. With an ellipse, A is always greater than B. So this would have been the A, which was, and this would have been the B, which was 3. Okay, with an ellipse, it's C squared equals A squared minus B squared. So that would be 25 minus 9. And that becomes 16. To cancel out the 2, you square root both sides, and so C equals 4. So now we're ready to write our 2 points of our ellipse. Since it's horizontal, it'll be the x value getting added and subtracted to. The y value will remain 0. Okay, so you'll be taking negative 5, and you'll be adding 4 to it, which will bring you to a negative 1. And you'll go back to negative 5, and you'll subtract 4 from it, which will be at negative 9. Did y'all get it right? Okay, let's try number 2. What are we dealing with? Okay, horizontal hyperbola. We know it's horizontal for sure because of the minus in between them. And with hyperbolas, if x comes first, it's horizontal. Where is the center? 6, 3. Because you have a 6 in the h place, a 3 in the k place. Now with hyperbolas, A is always on the left, B is always on the right, so A would have been, and B would have been 6. With hyperbolas, the foci formula is C squared equals A squared plus B squared. So 81 plus 36, and what does that total up to? What? 117. And then to solve for C, square root both sides, and so C equals 10.8. Since it's horizontal, you'll be moving left and right to those foci points. So 3 is going to stay the same. You're not going to go anywhere vertically. They're going to be at 3. But from 6, you're going to go right 10.8. Well, what's 6 plus 10.8? 16.8. And then from 6, you'll go left 10.8. What's 6 minus 10.8? Negative 4.8, right. Did y'all get that? Okay, now I'll take a couple of minutes and try 3 and 4, and then I'll go over them. Okay, number 3. What are we dealing with here? A hyperbola, and we know that because of the minus in the middle. So I focus in on the hyperbola formulas, and I notice that if x comes first, like this one, it's horizontal. Okay, so now I need to find the center. What's in the h place? And what's in the k place? 4. Okay, so now with a hyperbola, A is always on the left side, and B is always on the right. So A is, and B is 4. Okay, with a hyperbola, the foci formula is C squared equals A squared plus B squared. So that would be 9 plus 16, which totals up to 25. And then to solve for C, you would square root it, and C equals 5. For the foci coordinates, since it's horizontal, you'll be moving right and left from the center to find your foci. So 4 will remain 4. You're not doing anything up and down. You're just going to go from 8, right 5, which would take you to 13, and you'll go from 8, left 5, which would take you back to 3. Did y'all get that? All right, number 4. What are we dealing with? What kind? Vertical. Remember, with an ellipse, A is greater than B. If the bigger number is up under the Y like this, it's vertical. Okay? So, what's the center? 1, 9. Okay, because 1, 9. What's the A value? No, actually this time it's 5 because remember A is always greater than B with ellipses, so it's 5. And then B would be the square root of 11, which you could change to a decimal if you want, but it's really no sense because aren't you going to go back and square it to put it in the foci formula? So C squared equals A squared minus B squared. So 25 minus 11 is what? 14. And then what do you do? Square root it. And what is the square root of 14? 3.7. Since it's vertical, when we do our coordinates, this will not change. Okay, that's the x value. We'll be changing vertically, so from 9, we'll be going up 3.7, which would take us to 12.7. And then from 9, we'll be going down 3.7, which would put us at 5.3. Okay, your homework is to finish this page. So on your pink sheet, you need to write 2-1 in the date box. And then page 16 in the assignment box. Okay? Today's date is 2-1. The assignment is to finish page 16.